All right. This is the fire hose. And we're going to walk through it. And I don't know, I talk about it at the beginning of this, that you're not expected to get all this, but the exposure is enough. If you use this as a reference, that'll help you a lot too. But just playing around with each one as we go through, I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds after we talk about each one to just play around and do its thing. So then you can get used to it. But these are some and most of like the core things you need to know to really navigate around. These are like the bottom layer stuff. And then there are tools on top of that which we can cover later if we have time. So let's begin. So this is what the default looks like in Blender. You've got your camera, you've got your cube, and you have your light. You can just go ahead and press A. That selects all. Also, as I'm going through these hotkeys, remember that I have this. I have an extra dock with all of those hotkeys in. So have this, but as we go through each section on the tutorial dock, I'm trying to separate it enough so it's easier on your eye and mind and stuff. So anyway, yeah, and then using this you can reference back. So anyway, press A and then you can press delete to delete. So there's that. Now we have a clear slate. Going on, let's save our file. Just press Control S and get in there and save it wherever you need. I'm not going to save this just because, I don't know, well, actually maybe it will, just in case it crashes, right? Don't want that now, do we? So I'm just going to put I'm going to say UUUG 3D modeling. And then I'm just going to save. Don't need to do any other settings. Alright, let's create a cube. So whatever, this little red and white checkered circle, that is called our 3D cursor, and this is one of Blender's strong points. You can use this for all kinds of things. And whenever we make a new object, that's where the object goes. So go ahead and you can press Shift A to add. And then you want to go in under Mesh. These are all our shapes. And just hit Cube. Bonk. And it's right there on the 3D cursor, and it's in the middle. If you accidentally moved your 3D cursor, I cover on how to get that back to the center in the dock. So go ahead and I can show you real fast. I don't want to overwhelm you, but if we press Shift and right mouse button, we can move that 3D cursor. And if you've accidentally done that, like typically you want it in the center, but you can use it for other things. Right now we want it in the center, basically. If we have it somewhere else, you can press Shift S to open the snap menu, and you can just come down to cursor to world origin. That just puts it back in the center. And then you can make your cube. Shift A to make the cube. Boom, select the cube. So there it is. All right, moving on. And if this is a lot, remember you do have the documentation here to help you digest it a bit more. So there's two different modes in Blender. We can't edit our geometry in the standard mode, object mode. We have to go into edit mode, which lets us edit all the vertices, edges, and faces. A way to think about this, I struggle explaining this. This is like a concept that always comes up and is always kind of hit a brick wall. The best thing I could come up with is it's like a container of food. It's like a transparent container of food. Like in object mode, we're handling the container. We can see the food inside of it, but we're moving the container. When we go into edit mode, we're opening the container and we're messing with the food itself, right? Or eating it, right? I don't know, changing its shape. And then if we want to go back to edit mode, we put the container back on and we can move it again. So that's the best thing I could come up with, so I hope you like it. Ta-da, the end. Applause, please. Thanks. All right, going on. So, let's see. Just covered that very quickly. So once we're in edit mode, we can select the vertices, edges, and faces of the object. So to go into edit mode, we just select our object and press Tab. And there are visual interface buttons for all these things somewhere. But for object mode and edit mode, it's just right at the top here, and you can just, you're mainly using these two modes. Don't worry about these last four, just object and edit mode, or you can just hit tab to go back and forth. So I'm teaching you the shortcuts as well, introducing you to those, because it is much faster if you're not clicking around everywhere. Just get the shortcuts down, bam, 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 bam. You can do things as fast as your fingers can go. So, okay, going on. We're in edit mode. Hello, and then let's see. So, adding more shapes within an object, if we needed to. This is just for the purpose of playing with the stuff we're going to cover in this upcoming section. If you want more to mess around with, just hit Shift-A again, and because you're in edit mode, mesh is the only option you have, because that's the mode we're in. We're in a mesh edit mode. So then you can just create another thing if you want to play around with. Here's a cone. And if we really wanted to, if we brought another one of these things in, here, I'm just going to delete all these for a sec. You don't have to, just keep them in the scene. At the bottom left, where it says add cone, you can change the properties of this primitive, right? This, so how many sides do you want? Oh, 18's good. What's the radius? That's good. Radius 2. Whoa, that's not a cone anymore. Depth. Whoa, it's really big. Base fill type. Triangle fan. N-gon, nothing. Anyway, you can play with those properties. But for now, I'm just going to be using a cube, and you can add whatever you want to help mess around with these tools. So switching between mesh selection modes, you can select vertices, you can select edges, or you can select faces. And to do that, you can either come up to the top left next to the edit and object mode button and hit the vertex mode, edge mode, these three icons, that's what they are, or 1, 2, 3. Vertex, edge, face. I suggest remembering 1, 2, 3. Selecting types. What is this? Oh yeah, so different selecting types. Left mouse button to select, and shift left mouse to add to that selection or take away from that selection. Very basic stuff here, but just covering it just in case. We can also, if we have two objects in here, by the way, G is to move. We're going to cover that later, but if all your objects are appearing right here, you don't have to move them. You can press G to grab or G to move, and move that out of the way and click to confirm. But if I want to, now that I'm not in object mode, and that now I'm in edit mode, like I can't just select the whole thing easily. So a quick way to do that is hover your mouse over the object and press L to select all linked. That's what the L is, linked. And then you can select both of those. You can press Shift L to add or take away from that. Or I think Shift L actually just takes away. So there's that. Moving on, the different, we have A to select all and Alt A to deselect. All this is in the doc, so just digest that. I'm just going to verbally walk through it too. Then we have these select modes over here. You hold down this button at the top left, and you can make these selections. I never use these. I usually just use, I keep it on like that, on the just select, and I press C to enter brush mode, or in this menu it's circle select. I press C to use that.
Click and hold to open the...
Yeah, you click and hold to open that selection thing. Circle select, you can hold down C, you can scroll to make that bigger and smaller. You hold down left mouse button to make the selection, and then you can hold down middle mouse to deselect. You can't rotate doing it this way. In this menu, with these select circle, you can still rotate with it activated, but I don't know, I find I never really need to rotate when I'm selecting anyway. I've already got the position I need. And then, so there's C for that circle select, and then B for the box select. And you can just drag using the same method as the circle select, and then you can press middle mouse button to deselect. So there's that, and I just press Alt A to deselect everything. Alright, additional selection functions. I'm going to pull out this torus like I have in the example, just Shift A to add that new object. I'm just pressing G to move it out the way. Here are the different selection modes. I've got vertex selection mode on right now. We have shift click. Maybe I already covered that, I don't know, but this is what's written in the documentation, so sorry if I'm repeating myself. Control click to select shortest path. That means if you select your first one, and say I want to just all the vertices up to this point, I just hold control and I click that point, and it's just gonna select all the vertices in that path. And any shortest path, so it's going up here and then it's taking the shorter radius to that point. So that's really useful too when you have more complex objects and you want to make just sections of selections. And then you got loop select, which hold down Alt to just select that whole loop, and you can hold down Shift while you do that too to add more on top of that. You can do that in edge mode as well. Works the same way in face mode. You just select the edge that you want to go in that direction. I don't know how to explain that, but if you want it to go this way, I'm selecting this edge to go across that way. So anyway, there's that. And just going over what loops are. Loops are just rows of geometry, but typically it's got to be in quad form. Alright, moving on. Transparent view. Sometimes you want to select things that you can't see because the geometry is in the way. You can just press Alt-Z to get into that and play around with selecting things that are behind. Sometimes it can get complex. Sometimes you just want to move behind it and select it, but anyway, there's that if you need it. I use it a lot. Okay, now we've got selection out the way. Moving, rotating, and scaling. We have G to grab, or to move is its traditional name. R to rotate, and S to scale, or resize. So G, R, S. You make a selection, pressing L to select that whole object. And you press G to move it along there. You press R to rotate it, and S to scale.
Joe, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is the importance in how much geometry we're using? Like that torus versus that sphere. One has a lot more geometry than the other.
Oh. We'll probably cover that later. But I don't know. Like, use more geometry if you need the form to be more transparent or like not blocky. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll probably go over that in later. How are we doing on time? Okay, about halfway done.
I do have a real fast side note on that. It is usually, I find, I don't know if you find this to be the case, like if anything other than a cube in Blender, when you add new object, it's almost always way too much geometry, especially.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like 32 and 32. It's like, please make it like 12 or 8.
Yeah. So in that properties thing that I showed you earlier, when you make something, this shows up right here. You just click that and you can change the amount of geometry. But we don't really need to focus on that right now. We'll probably go into that when we get into more modeling. So with G, R, and S as our grab, rotate, and scale, we have things to go through on top of that. Hope you're all sticking with me. If we press G, we basically move along whatever we're looking at right now. Like, we don't really know where in space it's going, but in relation to the camera we do. But it's kind of like, oh, I want this to end up right here, but like how deep is right here and how far is right there. So a perspective is messing that up. If we just want to move it down in the z-axis, you press G and then press Z, or you can press X, or you can press Y to move it in X, Y, Z. And that is key. Like, I use that all the time. You need to be able to just move things directly down, GX or GY, or you can just press G and then change your mind after you've pressed G. So I go Z. Oh no, I want X instead. Oh no, I want Y instead. So that's super important.
Could you do that with like scaling it? Like you will scale it in one direction?
Oh yeah,
also?
that's right. Yeah. So you can do that in rotation and scale as well. So I can press R to rotate and Z. So we're only rotating in the Z-axis. Here's X as well, and here's Y. So that's fun. And then scale as well. If you only want to scale in the Y, then you got that. So same thing. And now on top of that, we can get a specific number we want. So like if we want this cube to move up just 1 unit, we can press G, Z, and then type 1. And it's going to move up 1 object. This is one of the strengths of Blender, I feel. This is like, Blender has the fastest way to move things like that by just being able to type 1 letter to move it, 1 letter in 1 axis, and, you know, type whatever number you need to move it in that amount of space. It works with rotate as well in degrees, so rotate Z 45 for 45 degrees, or you could do S, I don't know, I'll just do S and then 2 to double the scale.
Hey Joe,
Yes.
are there any like casual Blender users? It seems like every time I've sat through like a lesson like this, it's like here's
It's everything.
You have to know like all of this crazy stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna use this an hour a month. I'm never gonna remember any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to use a different tool. But like,
Yeah, right.
are there casual users or are there only like mega pros? I mean, like.
Oh, there's definitely casual users. I've been bugged by one for the past couple of weeks.
How long did it take you to go from sort of? I mean, I just.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like,
What's the learning curve and like how much you have to invest in it
because
to
I suffered
be
like,
comfortable?
through this beginning part of the learning curve a couple times, and then I give up, and then I just repeat it later.
Right.
Like, if I just stuck with it to learn it,
Yeah.
what am I looking at? Time?
Well, to back up, right now all that's expected is you're playing with these as we go along. To get that some muscle memory so something is familiar. You're not expected to memorize all this, for sure. It's also the reason why I wrote that doc as well. It's because if you're going through this, you are going to have to spend some time remembering these. It's definitely going to make modeling anything much easier if you just take, I don't know, just take 1 hour and go through all those things I have in the list and just get used to them a little bit more. That 1 hour is going to be a huge investment. It's going to really speed things up. Do it for 2 hours, like, you know, do it for another hour, another day, and really solidify that. It's all muscle memory. Like, all these hotkeys, like, it's a shotgun of hotkeys. It's everywhere, all over the keyboard. But it's the muscle memory that you're trying to get. So take the time to do this and to learn it, and then you can be modeling much faster after that. Just invest that 1 or 2 hours here and there to solidify those. But it's definitely going to take that. So if most of this goes over your head, that I expect that too. Use the doc to get yourself familiar with things and get yourself used to things. So I'm just going to keep going to expose you to it. We have undo, Control Z, Control Shift Z is to redo. By the way, all these hotkeys you can change just in edit preferences to whatever you want. I don't suggest changing everything, but I would try and just get used to what Blender offers by default and change some things here and there. Alright, so grid units. Grid units are 1 meter. The end. Don't really have more about that. So
How did you get your view to go orthographic much better, or was that just straight up why?
I'm going to go over that in 3 sections. Snapping is a big thing too. When you're moving things around, sometimes you want to snap, I don't know, like if I hit shift on this vertex, I'm going to deselect it. If I select it one more time, it goes white, makes it active. That's the last selected one. Say I want to move this whole thing and snap it to this vertex. I want everything to just go straight there. I can come down in this menu and hit, oh, what kind of snapping do you want? I want to snap to vertices, or vertex mode. Okay, what's the target? I want the closest vertex to my whatever I go to. The closest vertex to my target to be the one that snaps. Or I can say my active, the white one. I can just press G. Hold down Control to enable the snapping, and then just move along, and it's going to snap to that vertex, that point. And I do suggest like going through these and playing along with it too. That's going to help your muscle memory, and that's what's important. One that you'll be using a lot for modular assets is the increment snapping mode, and then turning on absolute grid snap, which means whatever you have selected, like it's just going to snap to the grid. So I'm just going to press L. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to start fresh. Bring in a cube. There we go. And then I'm just going to hit G and X to move in the X. And then I'm going to hold down Control to snap it to the grid units. So you'll be using a lot of that doing modular pieces and things. And then I go over the different snapping modes there are. You can turn snapping on by default by just hitting that magnet button at the top. That just turns it on all the time. I don't like to model with that all the time, so I just like to use Control to enable it and disable it as I need easily. Then, as you're using all these tools that we've been going over, pay attention to the bottom of the screens we went over before. It's going to show all the different hotkeys you can use. So, oh, it says X to go on the X-axis. Oh, it says Z for Z-axis. It says Shift X to only move on the X-plane, or Shift Z to only move on the Z-plane. And then it's got all these others. Just play around with them. I don't know what clear context does. It's gone now, but you know, whatever. So just play around with things like that. When you enable a tool, look down at the bottom and see what it suggests. Just follow those and you'll learn a lot about each tool. Alright, orthographic and perspective views. The 2D and 3D almost. This is important to modeling because sometimes perspective is going to mess up with the size of the object. If you're looking at something like this and, you know, if you're like modeling a... Oh, this is... Let's pull this right here. Let's pull this over here. I'm in perspective mode. I'm going to pull that here. Ah, there we go. It's a square. Wrong. So, in perspective mode, it's not always a good idea to be modeling if you want like very specific shapes. It has to look a certain way. Perspective is good for getting your bearings around like the surrounding 3D objects and things like that. But to switch back and forth, you can press numpad 5. And that will change it to orthographic view. But we still want like a flat look. So we can press numpad 1 to go to the front, or we can press control 1 to go to the back. And this is numpad 1. All these are numpad. Control 1 to go back view, 1 to go front. Then there's 3 to go to the side, the right side to be exact. If you hold down control, you go to the other side, the left. So 3, right, control 3, left. Then we've got 7, which is the top. So it's like it's making this pattern on the numpad. 7 is top, hold on control, and you can go to the bottom. And then if you don't have a numpad, you have the squiggly key. That's above tab and left of 1. If you hold that down, it'll bring up a pie menu, and you can just say, oh, top, and oh, bottom. So,
You mean tilde?
what is it?
The tilde key?
Tilde?
Tilde.
Tilde?
Tilde.
Tilde. Okay, tilde key. Thank you. I learned something new today.
The Spanish squiggly line.
So anyway, this is new of 2.8, Blender 2.8, and it's really useful. So, but you're still going to have to press numpad 5 to toggle between orthographic and perspective, or come up to view, view, and then viewport. Oh no, right here, perspective orthographic. So, anyway, there's that. We're almost done with this fire hose, and almost done with our hour. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. That's our conclusion. So go back to this documentation and it'll help you get used to these if you're not already used to these. The more you can rely on the hotkeys, the faster you'll be. So get that muscle memory in there. Okay, modeling our scale reference object. I've written this out. Maybe some of you have already followed this along because I just did it very step by step. But we need a reference for our modular pieces. We need to know how big a human's going to be in relation to these pieces. So doing some research, the average male size is approximately 175 centimeters, and the average female size is about 160 centimeters. That is 1.6 units or 1.75 units. So let's edit our cube to be accurate to our reference. So we just need a cube. If you got all this junk, remember, just press A, and you can press delete or X to bring up the delete menu. There's a lot of different types of delete. You just hit vertices, and then you'll be good. X and hit vertices. And that'll bring up it'll delete everything. So Shift A, cube.
Object mode or edit?
In edit mode. You got to be in edit mode for all this. So edit mode, cube. So once you've got your cube in edit mode, go ahead and press numpad 1 to enter the front view, or you can use the tilde key and hit front right here. Now we can see that our cube is exactly 2 units, 2 by 2 by 2, basically. So if you try and rotate in this mode, it's just going to go back to perspective. So don't rotate, only pan. So we need our reference to be on floor level, but we can't select the back vertices in this current mode. We need to go into transparent mode, which, if you remember, is Alt-Z. All these things that I'm going to talk about for this reference object we covered in the last one, so be referencing that if you need. Press Alt-Z to go into the transparent mode, and then using C or B, just select these bottom vertices. And I'm just going to show you that in transparent mode it does select all those. If we're not in transparent mode, it won't select those back ones. So with all those selected,
So when you select the front ones in transparent mode, it selects the back ones as well.
if you're only making one selection, it's only going to hit one. So that's why it's important to use like a group select mode. So C to paint or B to make the box. So when you go over that vertex, it's selecting everything that's in that thing, which there's 2 vertices in that area. So we're bringing those up. We want to move these vertices up to the ground level, so we can hit G to grab, press Z to lock it in the Z-axis, and then press 1. We're moving it up 1 unit.
And then enter or something.
And then you can hit click, to confirm. You can just left mouse click or enter to confirm it. Alright, so now our reference is 1 unit tall. We want to make it 1.75 tall for a male, or 1.6 for a female, roughly. So we can just select those top ones in the same way, box select, B, or using C to circle select. Make sure you're in transparent mode. And then press G, Z, and then we want to go 0.75. We want to move it up 0.75 units. So now if we rotate around it, it is the right height, but it's not the right width. It's a very fat human. So if you press A to select everything, we can scale it. We can like squish it down, but still retain that height that we just made. So press S to scale, Shift Z to lock in the Z-axis or on the Z plane, and then just move it about, I don't know, about
What's the average width of an adult male?
depends on the nationality.
Everything wider all the time.
So anyway, something like that should be good. So that's about as high as our object needs to be. So there, you've modeled your first object. Round of applause, everyone! Yay! Okay, we're moving on. Slowly but surely. And how are we doing on time? Alright, I need to be wrapping up in probably 10-ish minutes or less. Oh yeah, and last thing to do, let's name this. If you just come up here to the outliner, just double click that, and name it Tim. I don't know, or
Tim.
John, whatever you want. So that is our object. There is Tim. Alright, building our modular assets. Now, this is where I'm probably just going to walk through this. I knew that I'd be pressed for time. I did want to expose these things to you because they're so important. But again, this is why I got the doc. You can take this at home, and with this video, you can follow along if you want at home. Or, I don't know, follow along now if you want. But what I did write down is my thinking steps of like my goals for my actions. So I put that out there to to show you what's going on in my head. Like, what am I trying to do here? What am I trying to do there? So for the straight piece, here we go. I'm just gonna walk through it, and I don't know. I think for time, do you think I should just walk through it and get this thing in Unity?
Do it.
Okay. So if you want to follow along, great, but you have the video. So, all right. So, gonna look at my reference. You know what? I should just pull up. This thing is so big. All right, let's see. So this is our reference. So I'm gonna make this
Straight.
this straight piece, the shortest straight piece first, or I can make the long one, whatever. It's easy. So let's say this is going to be 2 units long. All right. So I'm just going to move this out of the way, and we need a plane to start off with. So I'm just going to add a plane. I'm really going to try not to repeat everything I'm doing so I can just get to the point. That's going to be really hard. But anyway, my object's origin is in the middle, right? So that's good. Like, I want my origin to be here, but I'm going to move my geometry to the side with increment snapping. I'm going to just move that and snap it to that. So there's my origin. It's on the corner.
And you're making this an object mode as a separate object? Right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm making this as a separate object. So there's Tim, and we need a different object. So I just made a plane. And anyway, so in edit mode, is 2 units too small? Maybe, maybe not. This is why we have our reference. So that's good. So I'm just moving it along, snapping it. I can be an orthographic if I want. Shift C to see that. So let's say, I don't know, let's pick it at 1 more unit. Sure, that's good. Now I'm going to loop cut, and this is, I'm going to press Control R to do some loop cuts, because I want to get this shape, so I need more geometry. So we need this top bit. I'm actually going to keep the front up against the origin, and I'm just going to move back. Okay, so move everything back about there, except it should be in the middle, so I'm going to move that back. So we need another piece so we can get that front bit. Something like that, that's good enough. And then we've got this slope here. Maybe we can move this down a bit more. And then we have, let's see, if our player's right here, this is the player's head. This is probably a good height. Then we have this front panel bit. I'm going to move this back just a tad. And then get this in to create this line. And then another one to move it back. But I want it to be at the same height of this, so I'm just going to come up to vertex mode and snap. Ooh, that's not good. Sometimes snap is so annoying. And I don't know what does it, but that is something they really need to fix. What is that?
Beta.
Project onto self, active closest. Well, hitting closest seems to fix it, so.
Real quick, how did you get the additional vertices in there, or edges?
That is Control R.
Control R.
Yeah. All right. So there's our shape. We've moved all those lines to get this kind of shape, and you know it's not perfect. This could be a little bit bigger, and I don't know. This could be smaller, but there it is. We might want some kind of roof, or I don't know. We might just want to add a little bit of that. But we don't want to go any further than a grid unit, so I'm actually just going to come over here, increment, absolute grid snap, move that to the grid. There we go. So it's right on 1 unit. This whole thing covers exactly 1 by 2. So there's that. Now if we want, we have these pipes. So in object mode, I'm just going to Shift A and bring in a cylinder. And this is a lot of vertices. Like, we don't need that much to get a smooth curve because it's going to be a lot smaller. So we could probably get away with, I'm just going to estimate 16. Yeah, that should be fine. And then we don't need any caps because these are going to fit together. So I'm just going to hit Engon. Sorry, not Engon. Nothing. And then press L, select the whole thing. I'm going to rotate Y, 90, and then scale. And bring that up a little bit, bring that back a little bit. And now I can select this edge and snap it to this. So G, X, and then holding Control does not do anything because we're in vertex mode. So G, X, and there we go. Putting my mouse over that and select all that again. G, X, and snap to that. There, we have a pipe. We can add another one if we want, but we got to move fast. So, repeat those steps if you want to add that other pipe in there. Okay, moving on. We want to create our curved piece, so I'm just going to duplicate this by pressing Shift D. By the way, all these hotkeys are in. I got to make sure my increment snapping's on, and then move it. All these hotkeys are in that hotkey reference, so I'm just moving this over here just to move it out of the way because I'm going to work on this other piece now. And we're going to get that nice curve right here, and it's only going to cover 1 by 1. So, this is where using the 3D cursor comes in handy as a pivot point. I'm actually just going to move my geometry over here. Why did it do that? Yeah, there we go. What? I don't know why it's doing that. But that's fine. Actually, we can just move it across like that. It's probably just because like I've got different values, different vertices in the y-axis, so it's messing up the snap-in. But anyway, that's fine. We need our pivot point. We need to rotate around a pivot point. So right here, I need to move this to right here, or we could move our object over there, except snapping in Y isn't working for me right now. So what I'm going to do is just get something right here. So I'm just going to select this vertex and press E to extrude it, and then I can just snap that right there. And now I can select that vertex, press Shift S to put the cursor to selected. There we go. Now we can use this as a pivot point over here at the top. Where is it? Give me a moment. Okay, that is pivot point. We want the pivot point with the 3D cursor. So in edge mode, first I should delete this vertex now. Don't need it. I'm going to select all these, and I need to extrude this by pressing E, but I need to rotate it as I'm extruding. So what I'm going to do is making sure that my pivot point is on 3D cursor, hit E, and then just click, like it did extrude. We can bring it out, and it did extrude, and we're just going to hit right mouse button to cancel that. And then we can hit, actually, excuse me for a sec, actually. Select that, E, and then rotate by pressing R, not confirming anything yet, we're still in the same function, and then we need to figure out like how many times in 360 degrees, we need to divide 360 by the amount of sides we have. So I think 11.5 gives us enough, like that's the amount of degrees that gives us enough of a curve. So I'm just going to I've already hit R, lock it in the z-axis, and then hit 11.5. Oh, backspace that. In the top left, you can see what you've written, minus 11.5. All right, and then hit enter. Now we can repeat that. Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, Shift R. Boom, there it is. And then we can get rid of all this and hit vertices, faces, sorry. So then we're just left with that. Now we just have to make sure that our pivot point is lined up with the corner of our geometry. That does not look...
Yeah, I was going to say 11.5 doesn't seem to be a good number, Chad.
Well, 11.5 is the middle of...
That's
Math.
Well, oh wait, was it 11? I was probably thinking of 12.5.
Yeah, that'd be eight sections.
45 divided by...
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to do. That's good.
How many faces? 8, so 90 divided by 8?
So I'm actually just going to delete all these vertices, so then I just have this edge.
Maybe you do 90.25, Joe? I think that's what maybe we showed before. That's 90 divided by 8.
What's 8 divided by, 360 divided by 8?
360 divided by 8?
Yeah, 360 divided by 8.
You should be able to type
Oh,
it
sorry,
right
not
into Blender.
8. Oh.
12.
Yeah, you
Oh
can
yeah,
type it
you
in.
can type it right in, can't
Yeah,
you?
you can type it right into Blender, and also I'm very curious as to why you're not actually just using the revolve function.
The what?
The revolve function.
What's that? Educate
Will
me.
let you revolve to whatever you want.
You mean a modifier?
It's not a modifier as far as I'm aware. There's a very old function from the early days. I think it's called revolve. Unfortunately, I don't know the hotkey right off the top of my head, but
360 divided by 32, please. That's what we need. But
type it in.
11.25.
Yeah, 12.5,
You just missed a 2.
or 11.5.
okay,
11.
so
Uh,
I'm gonna extrude Z. I want you to teach me that afterwards, and then rotate in the Z. Oh gosh, sorry guys, I'm messing myself up. E, rotate Z, and then minus 12.5, right?
11.2.
11. Okay. 11.25. That's what I want. That's just shift. Oh, there we go. Now it's perfectly meshed. Oh, okay. Way, we're doing math. And then we can just hit GY and select this vertex, Shift S, and then cursor to selected. And then we come into object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And then there, our origin is on that corner. All right, let's just keep with this. We would do the same thing with here. We can just stretch this 2 more units out, and we can, rotate it in the other way to bring that. Although, when we did all those extrusions, we have a bunch of vertices right here. So we can just highlight everything in vertex mode, right click, and then do remove doubles, and we have that. So now there is only one vertex. Okay, I'm actually gonna, for the sake of time, yes, we're going to skip doing the smaller pieces, but I mean, it's using the same tools. So anyway, that would be the next step, would be going in on that. I'll do one quick thing. You can make some cuts, move these cuts. I'm hitting GG, like double tapping G, sorry. GG. And I'm making some cuts in there, and then I can just extrude this thing out.
it's extrude.
E is extrude.
E.
And then I can press I to inset. I can press E to extrude again.
You're
Um,
clicking and dragging the mouse,
Oh, is that
right?
the name of that, man?
Press R and then you just remove the mouse.
So I'm just selecting a face, and then pressing E, and then just moving my mouse. Yeah.
So you don't click and hold, you just.
Yeah, I don't need to click and hold. That's right.
Okay.
So anyway, that's how I would. This is where I would address my mid-frequency details. Just these slightly bigger ones, and then also just to get a pretty curve here, I'm just gonna select this whole edge, press Control B, and then scroll to change like how many I want it to bevel. This is a bevel, so I'm just gonna scroll down. There we go. Okay, and then last thing to do, always pressed for time. Let's see. Mid-frequency details and then adding materials. This is where I would go and start like, oh, what's the color of this thing? So it's, I can select like these faces over here. And then over here in my materials thing, I can make a new material. 2.8 materials are so much simpler than Blender's ever done them, so that's great. And then you just come down here, change the color to something like gray. Oh, you do have to be in material mode here, or it's called look dev in here. Change that, and then you can see this is, if I change the base color over here, I'm getting that. And also, I want it to be metal, so I'm going to put, with metallic, you usually want all metallic, or no metallic. That's like, is it metal or not, basically. I don't know why they have a scroll. Because you change like how rough it is with the roughness, right? If it's no roughness, it's very shiny metal. If it's all roughness, then it's, you know, very rough metal. So I kind of want something on the lower side of the roughness. Really, that's all you have to deal with is metallic and roughness, and everything like that'll get you most of what you need. So anyway, now that we have a material applied, I'm going to apply a different one on the pipe. Press L here. Make a new material. Maybe I want to call this pipe, and maybe I want to call this metal. And when you export the object into Unity, it's going to remember these. It's going to remember that you have two material slots, and it's going to remember what faces you assign those slots to, if that makes sense. We'll get into that very quickly. So I'm just going to change to the pipe, and then with my faces selected, hit assign. Now they have that face on.
So will Unity use the Blender materials?
It uses the slots, and then within those slots you assign Unity materials into that, if that makes sense. Unless things have changed since I've been doing things. So anyway, we don't want this to be metallic. We do want it to be rough though. And really, like, these properties that I'm changing helps me get an idea of what I want it to look like before I go in, and then I go, okay, I like this kind of look. This is what I want to go with. And just as you're modeling, you've got this whole scene. If the material properties are all in there, it helps you get a real sense of what this thing's going to look like when, you know, you push for it. So also, it's very, like, you have all these hard edges here, so I'm just going to hit in object mode, right click and hit shade smooth. Oh, it's disastrous. Modifiers. This is where I put my bevel modifier on. And then my limit method, I'm going to use weight, so I'm going to assign my own weights. And then the size, I like width instead of offset or depth or anything. It's just preference. But weight is the big one here. It still looks disgusting, but just leave it like this for now. After that modifier, and modifiers, they're modifying the object on a object level, so they're not modifying any of the actual geometry itself. It's over the top until you apply it, and then it applies it to the actual geometry. So weighted normal is 2.8's magic tool. I really wish I could have gone into this a bit more, but I've got to leave it at that. But anyway, if you go down here to the data tab, hit normals, auto smooth. That does a lot, but not enough. Let's change this angle to something a little bit higher. That's the auto angle smoothing. Back in the modifier, keep sharp, and then let's see. If we just select an edge, if I press N, it'll bring up this panel over here. This edge data mean bevel weight. If you put it at a value of 1, if you go over here to overlays, wireframe, I'm just going to put it back in solid mode. That edge is becoming a bevel now, using our bevel modifier. But you can select that and bring it back if you want. So that's bevels really fast. And then anyway, once we have all this done, we can just bring this back to origin, to the center of the world. Press File, Export, FBX. We just want the mesh down here. So only selected objects. And then I'm just going to export it on my desktop. Boom. And then in Unity, create project.
And that was file export.
Yeah, that was file export.
Export it, FBX.
Yeah. And I really like with this workshop, the documentation is what I really want to focus on. Like, I want to build it up so then you can take your own time and go through this after, like over a week, just here and there. I think that's going to be the most helpful. So now that we're in Unity, because this is the Unity meeting, not Unreal, we go to, it's been a while.
You're wanting to import.
Yeah, I wanted to import the asset. How do I do that?
Drop it in Explorer.
Sorry, what?
Drop it in the assets folder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. You can just drag and drop it, can't you?
Yep.
I love that. So I'm just gonna. Don't hit the X. Sorry, what?
I think Unreal has drag and drop.
I think Unreal does as well. Yeah.
I have noticed that does not work on the Linux version of Unity. Linux version of Unity does not have drag and drop.
Interesting. So then we can just drag that in there. Wow, my resolution is terrible. What is up with that?
How was the Linux version of Unity anyway?
Unstable and buggy and stopped using it.
But anyway, you can drag and drop that in there, and why center? You want this to be on pivot right here at the top. Hit that to pivot, and you're gonna, you can edit it on the pivot that we set. You want it 0, 0, 0, and then you can snap it to. How do you snap on here again? Control. That's right. And you can press Alt to duplicate it, right? Or that's.
I use a Control D.
Control D to duplicate it, and then hold down Control, and then there you go. You're making your level, and you can Control D, and then we can rotate it. How do you snap again?
Control.
Control. That's how you snap. Thanks for teaching me Unity, guys. It's been so long. And then, actually, I think we duplicated that twice. Oh, no, we didn't. So anyway, with all these pieces, you start to make your own levels. Doing it in a very modular way is very fast and efficient. I don't know why it's see-through right now. In fact, I don't really know much about Unity right now.
Backfaces aren't rendering, I think.
Oh.
Backface culling turned on?
I don't know. But anyway, my time is up. That is how to get it through. If anything, I hope that you understand more about the approach to 3D modeling, big, medium, small. And that if you're just practicing what we went over, and getting that in your muscle memory, like just spend like an hour or two, you can get in there, getting fast. I really think it's important to have your own, your own creative ideas to get in there. It doesn't take much to get to the point where you start to feel a bit more comfortable making your own designs. Even at a conceptual stage, you're putting your stuff into Unity, you've got your own design, you could take it to someone who is a more trained 3D modeler and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm going for. Do you think you can make some more assets for me? They can see what you've already got and go, all right, that's easy enough. But most importantly, like, you can take these and start building your level in that design instead of just using primitives. But anyway, that's that. I'm sorry I don't know, it's kind of an explosion, but I tried to be thorough, I tried to address things, and I hope that the video will help, if anything, in the documentation. So thanks for being patient with me and doing this.